Well, welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming tonight and making time to join us. Tonight, the topic is stop hiring Scrum Masters and start hiring Agile Leads. I am super excited about this conversation. Can't wait to see where this goes. Alex Griffith, our co-host of the Heart of Agile, is going to be leading our discussion today. So without any further ado, Alex, I'll throw it over to you.
Thanks, David. All right, well, let me start by, I do have some slides here. So I'm going to start by sharing some slides, and let's make sure that this comes up. This is a Google spreadsheet, and I actually have the link to it in the Google Doc that's in the chat. So you could flip through it on your own if you'd like. All right, so let's share my window. And all right. Okay, so I'm going to go to full screen here, so I won't be able to see everything, but that's okay. Okay. All right, just to make sure, David, can you see that nice and big?
I
Not here.
can.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself. Yes, we can see it.
All right, great. And now, David, yeah, you're fully in charge of entering people in. I can't even see that. And let me know if there's any chats that I should be aware of as well. Okay, so this is a topic, as David mentioned, on stop hiring Scrum Masters. I'm just going to dive right into it because you guys are probably curious where it is going. So you guys have probably seen this before. If you see a job rec by a company that says, "Hey, we're hiring for a Scrum Master. Here's the responsibilities," and it looks like it's essentially copy pasted from the Scrum Guide or SAFe. And I even have links within this presentation here if you want to go to there and you can check to see if it is copy pasted. I've seen it a bunch. You've probably seen it a bunch. Maybe some slight customization, but it always raises the question, do they actually understand the nuances required for that role? Or are they just told, like, maybe, hey, this team's doing Scrum, we need a Scrum Master, we're doing an Agile transformation, whatever it is, we just need this person for this role. I don't understand it. Here it is. Right. So to back up a bit, Scrum Master is a particular role and it's designed specifically for the Scrum framework. Pretty much all of you in this call should know that very much. I hope you know that. If you don't, then a Scrum team consists of a Scrum Master, a product owner, and everybody else, the contributors on the team. The Scrum Master serves as the servant leader of the team, and they are also the custodian of the process. They're the Agile coach of the team. We'll get a little bit more into what a coach means. And they complement the product owner, who is the technical lead of the team. They own the product. They're the liaison to the customer for the team. So a Scrum Master, it's very important for a team, and it's an amazing role, but it's a terrible job title. So let me get into why that is. But first, let's talk about some Agile values and principles. Scrum is a variant of Agile, and a lot of times people use those interchangeably because when people say Agile, they often mean Scrum, or maybe they mean scaled Agile, which is a team of teams of Scrum teams. But there's different kinds of Agile frameworks. Scrum is just one of them. So let's talk about what is Agile, where did this come from 20 years ago, and how can we then apply that to why a Scrum Master as a job title might not be the best thing and what could be better. So the original Agile values are these four, which you can find on agilemanifesto.org, the old 1990s looking website that was created in 2001. It has not been updated. So it's a set of values, right? There are values on the left side, such as individuals and interactions, and values on the right side, such as processes and tools. They make intuitive sense. When you're working with a team, you don't really care about exactly how nice your process is if people aren't interacting together. If individuals are just off and doing their own thing and not collaborating, then maybe your process isn't good. So while process and tools are great, individuals and interactions are more important. That's the idea behind these values. Another important one, I'll call it right here, is that last one, responding to change over following a plan. That's super important in Agile, and is part of why Agile has the name Agile, is because you want to be able to pivot. You want to incrementally deliver things. You want to incrementally and periodically, intentionally go back on your process and look back and say, how can we improve? What change just happened to us? How do we respond to it? How do we want to make changes as a team and improve? Instead of just this, it's often, Agile, as you know, is often countered, or I think it's a little bit of a straw man argument to say you can have Agile or waterfall. Waterfall is oftentimes a bit of a myth. Some companies did do sort of a boilerplate waterfall, but oftentimes it was some mixture. So they were responding to change, but Agile, that's the main value. These are 4 of the principles. So again, if you go to that website, agilemanifesto.org, there's the 4 values on the front page. But if you've never done this, drill down, go to the bottom of the page. There's the 12 principles of Agile, the 12 Agile principles. These are 4 of them that I'd like to focus on for today. So the first one, welcome changing requirements, even late in development. That's again similar to the 4th value there. And this second sentence I love, Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage, right? You don't just say there's change and you can adapt to change, and you can be resilient to change, but you harness that change. Another one to call out here, another principle, is that we build projects around motivated individuals, give them the environment and support they need, trust them to get the job done. So that's all about team autonomy, team empowerment, having somebody serving as that servant leader to make sure that they have the environment and support they need. So you see how we're kind of building up to the role of a Scrum Master or similar. Another one here is the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. So again, this is about team empowerment. The team kind of gets control to not only decide how they want to get something done, but how they want to organize their own work, how they want to create their own teams. So they control the process, the teams control the process. And the last one is again about change and reflection. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective and then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. These are just 4 of the principles. Read all 12 of them, they're great, but these are relevant to kind of the role of the servant leader within an Agile team. All right, so we talked about the values. These are the principles. And now I want to kind of go back to the Scrum Master position, and let's focus on how can we better. We know that teams are going to change their dynamics frequently. You guys see this all the time, right? You have people that come and go on your teams. The project changes, you have deadlines happen. Maybe the team charter changes where you were being in charge of this other thing, but now this common set of individuals as a team is now in charge of something else. That's a dynamic change. You might have a progression in your software development lifecycle, your SDLC. So for instance, when you're developing features, it's entirely different than when you are feature complete, you're in production, and you're just maintaining your system. That's a different team dynamic. It could be the same people, but it probably shouldn't be run the same way with the same set of processes. So in these cases, Scrum should be questioned, right? You don't necessarily want to just keep doing things because that's what worked before. You want to constantly improve. You could possibly even scrap Scrum. For instance, as I mentioned in the software development lifecycle, if a team goes from feature to maintenance, it could be a good argument to go from Scrum to Kanban, because in Kanban, you're constantly responding to change. You can't really plan 2 weeks at a time because you're just handling operational defects, for instance. And there's other variants too, like there's the mixture of Scrumban, which is kind of in between Scrum and Kanban, loosely defined. And there's other frameworks too to consider that are all within the Agile umbrella. Some things to ask yourself on your team, like if you really have a self-organizing team, you could say, is the Scrum Master permitted to experiment with different frameworks, right? What about a seasoned Scrum Master? Is a seasoned Scrum Master pigeonholed into following Scrum by the book? Does that culture have process trumping individuals and interactions, which is against that Agile value that we saw on the previous slide? So what can we do about this? Scrum Masters are still a great role to have, and you should have people in those where you have Scrum teams. But instead of maybe hiring for a Scrum Master, some companies and coaches are hiring for different things. So for instance, Xero, we talked about this as David works at Xero, although I didn't tell him I was putting this on the slide here. They don't hire Scrum Masters or Agile coaches, or I think they have Agile coaches as a higher level, but their Scrum Master equivalent is an Agile Team Facilitator. Other companies may just hire blanket Agile coaches or Agile consultants because they want that kind of general job instead of just pigeonholing into Scrum Master. A lot of this was spurred on by a book I read by Gil Broza called The Human Side of Agile. He's got another one called The Agile Mindset. Both are great. And they promote the position, Gil promotes the position called Agile Team Leader. I call it Agile Team Lead, Agile Team Leader. Just kind of a general term that's like the team lead of the process for an Agile team. And it may seem like this is semantics, but it's really not, because hiring for a Scrum Master, as I wrote here on the bottom, can indicate a lack of an Agile mindset. You can get pigeonholed. A team it can become inefficient. You're not really unlocking the full potential of a team by pigeonholing them to Scrum, not understanding what a team is doing, and hiring someone into that position. So with that said, that was a little bit of talking. I want to go more discussion based. So let's talk about this. First off, actually, before I go to that discussion question, pretend I didn't just show that. Let me ask the participants here. What questions do you guys have, or thoughts do you have about this? I'll stop sharing for a moment.
So our organization has chosen to have the title of squad leader, which kind of evolved originally out of Spotify model. Again, it's very, very similar, and like you, I've seen at least 30 different plus titles for the same type of role. Any comments around that, or if you have any familiarity with that definition?
Yeah, I do, and I'd love to hear what other people have to say. But I have heard interviews with the guy who created the Spotify model, and the Spotify model is one that was. People were really fed up with like Scrum and the prescriptive methods in Scrum and other things. And so Spotify kind of came up with their own thing. It was a bit homegrown. It's very similar, right? But it had their own take on things. It was a little more than just branding. There were some nuances. But the guy who, in an interview about it, he basically said, there is no Spotify model. We have all these variants. The point is they change all the time. So if you look at Spotify at the time of the interview versus when it was documented as a Spotify model, it looked very different. I'm sure it looks very different today. So that really emphasizes to me the adaptability to change. The point is that the teams are constantly reflecting, constantly improving. You can call it what you want, make it make sense for your organization or your team. But in terms of the Spotify model in particular, I encourage people to go look at it and see if you want to adopt some pieces from that makes sense for your team, go for it. But I would hesitate adopting something kind of boilerplate, because then you're focusing on a process.
I see a hand raised. Not sure if I pronounced that right. Sorry if I did.
Yeah, that's perfect. Just on the Spotify model thing, I'm happy that Alex said there is no Spotify model, because unfortunately I hear very often, so the majority of voices I hear keep talking about something that never existed, will never exist, especially to Spotify people. Spotify model as a denomination is a marketing invention by many consultancies that ended up building their own fake agile models to sell now. They've moved on, and I hate to say it, but I've been on that side, and it's just because it's a matrix organization that fits very nicely on a slide. They picked up one screenshot of one frame in a huge video, among many videos that explained one aspect of the culture behind all that stuff, and looked like a matrix organization. Fits well. Clients love it. They don't even know it's a matrix organization, but they turn it into a matrix organization, and it's just one facet amongst many, many facets of one look at how Spotify organized itself in some teams, and they kept reorganizing it, and it survived in that form for just some months. You can talk to ex-Spotify engineers and people who were working with that. It didn't spread through the whole organization. They had, because they were agile, each one of them had the right to define the one organization. And if you look at the way they were set up, even the rooms or the teams or the equipment they had was part of how they worked being agile. So it's just sad that consultancies picked up that one screenshot from the video because it looked nice, made by a software called OmniGraffle, by the way, if you have a Mac. So it's pretty old, and they spread it everywhere, and that's why it spread so quickly. So it doesn't exist. It's not a model even. It's just a matrix organization. It's literally a matrix. That's why it resembles a lot parts of the stuff that have been taken over by SAFe. One thing, and also I had a question to Alex. And by the way, it would be interesting if you guys contact anybody from Spotify now on LinkedIn and ask them, where is this thing used? You'd get pretty funny answers. And also the fact that you called it Agile Facilitators for me is also not semantics. I'm really curious as to where this comes from, because I've been looking for better vocabulary, better terminology for this than Agile Team Leads, or even outright, horrible things that are like delivery manager or something like that. Agile delivery manager or Agile project manager, stuff like that. So where does this come from?
So I'll say my thoughts on it, but I'll let David answer the ATF piece of it. My thoughts on the ATL, Agile Team Lead, is I prefer that over Scrum Master, and I prefer that over Agile Coach. And the reason being, Agile Coach is also overloaded, right? Agile Coach is in some senses a certification. People say you have to have this certification or this many years of experience to be an Agile Coach. And Scrum Master also is very prescribed. It means something very particular. Agile Team Lead or Agile Team Leader, interchangeably, I don't really care. I think that perfectly describes the team position of the kind of the process person, right? I guess the Agile Team Facilitator, from my point of view, is maybe a little bit better in the sense that if people are wary of someone given a leadership position, a leader in their title, then that could be a little bit softer to be Agile Team Facilitator. But those are my thoughts on that. But David, what do you like about the ATF title?
So one of the things I like on the Agile Team Facilitator, and the biggest thing, is that it's not Scrum Master. That's the biggest benefit to it. We have run into a few problems with it where some people interpret it as the only role we have is facilitating meetings. So that's a challenge that we have, to where we may even be moving away from that eventually because of that confusion. But I still prefer it much over Scrum Master as the title. And I think the key is not necessarily like having a specific title, but having a title that isn't specific to a framework. And that's, to me, the key for figuring out the right way to approach this. And I don't know that there's like a right title for it, but I definitely would encourage people, if you're going to have that Agile mindset where you're using all of the Agile tools you have available, Scrum Master is not the title you want. Although, another thing I will mention with that, when you're hiring and doing recruiting for the role, it might be good to post it as a Scrum Master. One thing we've done is where we'll post the same job twice. One is Agile Team Facilitator, one is a Scrum Master. And some people will apply for the Scrum Master role that wouldn't apply for the Agile Team Facilitator role. Some people apply for the Agile Team Facilitator role that wouldn't apply for the Scrum Master role, just based off of what they're used to and what's common for them. So that's something to think about too, with the way you post for jobs, depending on the title.
Good thoughts.
So does that tell you something about the candidates?
Possibly, but also some candidates may not know to look for an Agile Team Facilitator title when they're looking. I want to hear Jenny's opinion on this, because she is actually an Agile Team Facilitator with Xero. Jenny.
Yeah, I was like, I might like jump in right now. I know for me, the title of Agile Team Facilitator has really helped, just because the teams that I work with do a combination of different things. And so it doesn't preclude me from kind of jumping in and sort of being able to have that agility, how you say, to really adapt the role that I take to the team that I'm working with. It does come with like challenges because again, most people don't understand like what an agile team facilitator does. And so they're like, oh, you're a Scrum Master, right? I'm like, but not really. The great conversation starter to be sure. So I prefer it. Yeah, I prefer being an ATF personally.
Great. All right. So I think we'll go into the discussion. Great discussion so far to kind of seed that. And yes, as you're hearing here, it is more than semantics. It is a bit of a nuance if you're not really familiar with these roles, but it is more than semantics. And I like Dave. I agree with David's main point is that I like to not prescribe frameworks. I want to be agnostic to frameworks, and that's the main thing. Beyond that, it's a bit of a toss-up to decide what works better for your organization. Let me share my. Actually, I don't even need to really. Do I need to share my screen? Yes, I'm going back and forth, indecisive. I'm going to share my screen again and go to the discussion question, and then we will go into a breakout room. Okay, sharing this. Okay, so this was the slide we were just on, the ATL or ATF or Agile Coach. Here's the first discussion question that I seeded. I want to make this a little bit more, what can we get out of this? You join a meetup here, you want to get something out of it, right? So let's discuss in our groups, what is one way that your team or organization can pivot toward an agile mindset? We talked about the values and principles, so think about those. And also, this is a quote here from Gil Broza describing his book called The Agile Mindset. Practices don't matter. What matters is how you approach them, the principles by which you guide your thinking and decision making. Okay, so I'm going to copy that over to the doc and I'll stop sharing it here. And then we can start discussing that. How many do we have, David?
We have 20 people.
What do you think, groups of 5 or groups of 4?
I'm thinking groups of 4.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to copy over this discussion question into the Google Doc. Please have that open as reference, and you can take notes there. So if we do groups of 4, that means we're going to have 5 randomly assigned breakout rooms. And if you look in the Google Doc, there's sections, there's breakout notes, room 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Have somebody, doesn't really matter, someone can just spontaneously do it, take notes and be willing to share that when you come back to the room. And let's give 10 minutes to talk about this because you can also, everyone's going to be introducing themselves a little bit and giving some background. David, I think that's all we need before going into the breakout. Did I miss anything there?
I think we're good.
Okay, so you should see on your screen shortly an invitation to a breakout room. Make sure you select it. You'll be put into it, and then we'll give you like a 1-minute warning before coming back into the main room. Please use your microphones if you can, otherwise use the chat and we'll be accommodating to whatever you can. Okay. I wasn't in
17 people, by the way.
Okay. I wasn't initiating it. David, were you?
I'll get it going right now.
So should we do 4?
I'm going to do 4 breakout rooms. Yeah.
4 groups. So one should have maybe 5 people, but we'll see. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, David.
All right, we are going now.
Okay, are we all back in?
I believe that should be everybody.
Yep. And if your breakout room was like mine, someone was right in the middle of a sentence. It was a really good sentence. So sorry about truncating it there, but we have to time cap it. We're going to do one more breakout session. So we'll get a chance to talk a little bit more. So I want to hear from each team, each group, what one takeaway was or what a summary was. So let's have somebody from, we'll go room 1 through 4, have somebody represent each room and try to talk for, let's say, no more than a minute, summarizing one or more takeaways from your room. Anybody from room 1?
Boy, 1 makes it hard.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll just call out one that I personally liked. Responding to change over following the plan. So we talked about how pivot is a learning opportunity and not a failure. But one of the challenges is that that needs support from management and others in the organization. Otherwise, it can be painful to do that.
Could you please repeat that, the last sentence?
Yeah, responding to change over following the plan. So making sure that pivot is a learning opportunity and not a failure.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the sentence you wanted?
Yeah. It is the one I missed.
And it is in the Google Notes. So that was the second to last point in room 1 there. Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
All right, let's go to room 2. I'm in this room, but I did a lot of talking already. Does anyone else from the room want to summarize or share any point from it?
I'll share. So we talked a lot about how we can measure business agility, how we can make sure that we're not just focusing on the team is following the process instead of actually, pointing back to those principles and those values is kind of how they can, for lack of a better way to put it, kind of like drive their work or focus their work. Let me pull those notes back up just to make sure I didn't miss anything. It's a little distracting trying to watch people type and talk and listen and all that fun stuff. So we talked about business agility, how when we're hiring for that role, which has typically been Scrum Master, right? Does the organization have a true sense of what they're actually looking for in that role for that specific team? Is it really going to be a Scrum team? So does it need to be a Scrum Master? And just making sure we have a good understanding across the organization of what we are actually looking for that specific team, because the dynamics may warrant something other than a Scrum Master. And the last point about the what Maru was saying, I missed some of it, but what he was saying is that there seems to be a common misunderstanding of what Agile is. It's not the manifesto. But Maru, would you like to finish, since I think you were the one who got cut off at the end of our program?
Thanks for the invitation. It's very kind. I'd rather not finish it because I definitely explore the time box for our host tonight. But I'd like to just share one last thought that I've been having a hard time with. So I'm even interviewing people and collecting inputs like in this meetup, etc. Which is, what do people expect from when they adopt this thing called Agile? Let's just assume it's a black box. Let's just assume we all know what it is, even though I claim that nobody agrees on what it is. But let's assume, what are you expecting? And just that would give you a lot of interesting feedback. Like one of my main reasons for adopting Agile, at least in my writings, in my papers, is resilience and flexibility and a lot of the values associated with the lean software development movement. So the Pop and Deeks and, the old class stuff, the real hardcore guys, the originals, and nothing to do with Agile in the sense of agility. And that's why it drives me nuts when I hear people talking about agility instead of Agile. But I'm going to stop here. I don't want to start another troll. And back to you, guys. Thank you.
Maru. Yeah, and that is a good point. In any Agile transformation or wanting to be Agile, that's a great question. What does it mean to you? What are you expecting out of it? Why are you doing it? And it looks like in breakout room 1, that was one of the other bullets. So I'm glad that was being discussed across the board there.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention something too, with business agility being mentioned from your room. And since we're kind of pulling from Gil Brose's material for the topic, he also has a book on business agility that's called Agile for Non-Software Teams. So if you're interested in business agility and this type of a mindset for it, that book is one I would highly recommend.
And David, you know Gil, right? We could just have him speak on this next time.
Perfect.
You know what? I may reach out to him and see if we can do that.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that before, but we definitely should. Awesome. I think that's his latest book, but yeah, he's got some great books. And they're not super long. They get to the point, and yeah, they're great. Okay, room 3, who would like to share?
All right, I was in room 3, took some atrocious notes. Let's see here. Is there anybody else in room 3 who wanted to say anything about what we talked about or what I attempted to jot down here? I think, probably the thing that stuck out to me is that, there's a lot of literature out there, a lot of information out there regarding Agile, and everybody trying to tell you how to do it, right? And eventually you just kind of need to decide, like, what do you want to do yourself? And how do you want to do it? And don't be boxed in. Somebody used the term in our group, said, no framework should box you in. And I think that's a pretty good takeaway. Like, you got to feel like your entire team has the liberty to just go about it however they want to do it. We talk about teams that are self-organizing, right? Well, to do that, you got to have a chemistry with one another, for starters. But then to get to that chemistry level, you all need to agree on how to go about your business and get things done day to day. So, refer back to the principles. Don't allow them to be prescriptive. Don't let people boss you around. Be your own boss, right? So, kind of get it done that way. So, yeah, I don't know. Anything else from the group 3 folks? Don't be shy.
You did it, my friend. You did it.
Thanks, Paige. All right. Well, there you go.
Thank you, Trent. Okay, room 4.
Hey, I'll jump in. Jenny was kind enough to take our notes, so I'll jump right in. Thanks, Jenny, for doing that. So we talked about, you know, as I'm reading through the notes, we maybe took a slightly different take on it. But we talked about if you're coming into an organization and you're unsure of where they're at with the mindset, to have those conversations, have those important conversations with the leaders, with the teams, and very similar to what was just described earlier on the questions for the interviews. Like what are they expecting from, you know, an agile organization, and just kind of find out where the team and the organization is at. I come from it's a small organization, but our focus is with our engineering team. And that's what I did, was I just started holding those kind of conversations to understand where they were at. I was observing behavior as well and processes. And so those conversations provided that additional context on why they're doing what they're doing. They're really beneficial. Jenny called out the fact that, you know, everyone does have a different perspective when we talk about agile and adopting, embracing that mindset. So it was, you know, it's important to have those conversations. People are coming from different perspectives. Another team member, they hold regular learning sessions for team members to kind of build that mindset, talk about concepts, allow teams to have those conversations. And then another team member was talking about a program where they are working with their teams to their capability of embracing the mindset. And they may start with an agile lead, and then depending on their maturity and their growth, beginning to work with an agile coach in that environment. So anybody else from room 4? Yvonne, Ginny, Shagaka, any comments? Okay.
You summarized it well.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay.
And you nailed everything. That's exactly what we talk about.
Nice. Great. Okay. Thank you all for sharing those. I do have a couple more slides I want to get to, but I'm going to go through them pretty quick because I want to go back to discussion. And given the time, we're near the end of the hour. We scheduled this for 15 minutes after the hour as kind of an overflow, but a lot of people have to leave at the end of the hour. So I want to get to those slides real quick. And then whoever can stay around, we'll keep discussing probably as one big group instead of breaking out into rooms. So with that said, let me go back to sharing. And I have just a couple more slides to spur some other thoughts on this topic. All right, so let me see. I'm forgetting how to share all of a sudden. There we go. All right, so sharing my screen, going to this. Okay. All right, so this is the discussion question we just talked about. What's one way that your team or organization can pivot toward an agile mindset? Please think about that. That's something that you guys should, always be thinking about. And if you lead retrospectives, by the way, ask that question. What is an agile mindset? How can we pivot more toward an agile mindset? Don't just ask what's not going well, what could we improve upon? Ask targeted questions like that. This is something, so this is the Heart of Agile meetup. We haven't really talked about it yet in this session, but Heart of Agile is a thing. It was founded by Alistair Coburn here on the left. He recently posted this a couple of days ago on LinkedIn. So I wanted to share this. The logo is on the right, and there's these 3 new words added to the center, not of the official logo, but they're added, as you can see in the text there, they're added for internal leaders, trainers, and communities. They're not part of the official Heart of Agile logo, but it helps us keep our center. The Heart of Agile is just the 4 outside, what are called imperatives. If you boil Agile down to like what really matters, at least according to the Heart of Agile and Alistair, is collaboration is key. Delivering is also very, very important. And then reflecting and improving. And those are separate things, not just reflecting and improving as one. So 4 different imperatives there. So some great documents on the Heart of Agile website as to what those mean and why those 4 matter. But it's always centered on the heart of Agile. Heart's always been at the center, but now humanity, dialogue, and openness are written in there. And I have a link in there if you want to dive more into the logo. There was a lot of interesting a Twitter storm sort of on what the logo would be, so you could read through that if you want. So that's the heart of Agile. And then this is another thing I wanted to bring up as we go into more discussion. The role of a coach, not just Agile coach, but a coach generally. There's a great podcast out by the guy, the author Michael Lewis, who wrote Moneyball, right? The kind of baseball statistics type of book that became a movie with Brad Pitt and other people. He now has a podcast called Against the Rules, where he analyzes, in the first season, he analyzes referees. The second season, he analyzes coaches, and from all different angles. He analyzes this guy, or he interviewed this guy, Jason Brown, who said something that really caught my attention here. He said, first, as a coach, to help a team succeed, first, take out all the hard work and the distractions. Second, make it easy for them to have good behavior. And third, make them want to have good behavior. A really good coach will make the players think that they don't need the coach. And that resonated with me because I've done a lot of Agile coaching, and that resonated with me, and I'd love to hear what you all think about it, about those two things, the Heart of Agile logo reflections and the role of a coach. So the last discussion will be along those lines. Let me stop sharing, but it's going to be, which of the 4 Heart of Agile imperatives or the center can you amplify in your current role to better the team? Or does anything stand out from those last couple slides I shared? All right. So open floor. Any thoughts on that? One thing I've had to learn with being a Scrum Master is to be okay with the awkward silences. But
it's hard though, isn't it?
But that was a little bit longer than expected.
I think
Just
it's an
two thoughts. Oh, go ahead, please. Sorry.
No, you go for it, Maru.
No. Please. I already talked enough.
All I was going to say, I think it's a really interesting concept, that second quote, right? A really good coach will make the players think that they don't need the coach. It's interesting, but I think it also would take time, especially for newer teams. It would take time to get there, to get to that comfort level where they go, oh, I don't need the coach anymore. I've got this, you know. So that was my only thought that I had on that so far anyway.
Yeah, I've heard some conflicting thoughts on that, where some people say like an Agile consultant or a Scrum Master, even, their job is to work themselves out of a job. And in some ways that resonates with me. Like the team becomes more self-organized, more autonomous, and it's easier. You know, you guys have probably seen this a bunch. It's easier for the Scrum Master as the team gets more and more comfortable and gets into a groove, but the role doesn't go away, at least in my view. It's always available. It's just less. I don't really know how to describe that well, but it does from the other perspective. And I was straight out asked by a developer one time, like, what are you doing on this team? What is your role? And it's a great question to ask yourself.
Yeah, I wanted to on that same analogy. It's not really a metaphor. It's more of an analogy, and all analogies are limited. They're designed for a purpose. You cannot just use them as a requirement to make everything for which you constructed the analogy work in the exact same way. But all managers / coaches in football teams or sports teams, if they're really good, they make the team think the players think they don't need them. But try to see how the team would play without the coach. Then you get your answer. What the team does is then it moves on to the next level. And like in video games, there is always the next boss, And just in real life, you don't see those bosses. It could be of any nature. It could be competition, it could be technology, it could be the human side, can be process, can be the management, it could be anything. It could be even interpersonal relationships between the people. So there's always the next level. But what I wanted to say was about the fact that practices and frameworks do not matter. I think what these authors mean it doesn't matter, as it's not the end, but you got to start somewhere. And usually, let's say you want to become an Aikido master, you're gonna have to start learning techniques and prefabricated tactics, I would say, for battles. You're not gonna go into a 10-minute fight of 3 rounds without having practiced at least some basic tactics to get into the fight. The same thing for boxing or kickboxing. The same thing. That's how you start. Same thing. If you want to adopt Agile, I think it would be much easier to start with something like Scrum or something smaller. So it's not that these frameworks don't matter. They're not the end. I think that's how I understand it. You know, it's not like we're dismissing these things. And also, my closing comment for today is an observation I made several times. The 4-Hour Work Week, 4-Hour Chef, 4-Hour Body, and all those books, by Tim Ferriss. I very often lately, like since 2020, I've had the feeling like it's the same thing with Agile. You can apply Agile to anything. I'm sure one day there will be Agile burgers and Agile French fries and Agile many things, or Agile medicine. And it's only half a joke, because earlier in our breakout, I talked about the different ways enterprises, organizations experience Agile, sometimes for transformation, sometimes for coaching, sometimes for products, etc. But I guess Agile is not the practices we associate with Agile. It's something else that is still to be defined. That's my closing word for tonight. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Maru. Since we are past the hour, let me also say that at the bottom of the doc, some people have been asking about the books and the references. I have written out all the, like, Gil Broza and a link to his book, and a YouTube video with him discussing one of his later books. And there's other references there that are related. And if you guys think of anything, I added, for instance, David, you mentioned another book, I added that to the references. So if you have other things, please add them there so everyone can easily find them. All right. And yeah, anyone is welcome to stay and discuss. We got about 10 more minutes. What other thoughts do we have on this topic?
In reference to the which of the 4 heart of Agile imperatives or center can you amplify in your current role? For me, and part of this is just because of the culture of the company I work for, that center of it, that humanity with dialogue and openness, that is the key to me for Agile success. If you don't have that human-centered approach and have open dialogue, you're gonna struggle, and you're gonna have a really hard time actually having a transformation. You may change some practices, but you've got to get to the heart if you're going to change the mindset and change the way the company actually works. So to me, that's the key.
I really like all 4 of those. And hi, by the way, my name is Piyush. I am an Agile coach. I'm playing the role of Agile coach today. Very lucky. And I think I can relate to all 4 of these. And in fact, I have it in practice in the current organization I work for. And bear with me, it's going to be a little bit longer story than you expect. So I have a practice called Agile assessment. Okay. In this, the teams decide what they want to improve on. Okay. And you won't believe these are the 4 things under which they actually come up with things that they want to improve on. Right. This is like, I know we have a practice of retrospectives, right, in which we only look at last 10 days on what we could do better in terms of people, product, process, or any of those things. But how about this idea came saying, how about something bigger, a roadmap of improvements that we want to see, right? Because agility does not come in like 10 days. Team can only solve a few smaller things in 10 days and they can get better at it. And this is where this idea came. And we started writing on the basis of these 4 things, which are written here, on what could it mean? What does it mean to collaborate? What are the practices that we need and how each team is doing on those? And then we started making trends on how we did this respective to last quarter. And it becomes the focus for the Agile leads to focus on that particular team about these are the things that they want to improve. My Agile lead sometimes might be biased because they want to make an impact in the organization saying, hey, see, this is what the team improved on, right? And it does not mean anything at the end, but this changed the game for us because now the teams are telling what they want to improve on. And the Agile lead is actually the helper to help them achieve those things. So I think I totally resonate with all those four because I have a practical implementation of that same thing in my current organization.
Great, thanks for sharing. I like that kind of twist on the retrospective, like kind of the longer view, a little more data driven, more trends. That's great. Anyone else have anything to share on the question, which of those heart of Agile imperatives or the center could amplify, or can you amplify where you are right now?
So I was just going to share real quick. So we are. I love that the addition to the logo, and I didn't grab a screenshot of it. Is it available yet?
It's in the doc. I just pasted it to the doc, and it's in the presentation, which is linked from the doc.
Okay, even with the new detail in the center around the heart. Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's lower down in the doc. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think the dialogue is critical, and that's what I've been focused on without knowing this. So I'm feeling glad and grateful that I went down that path. One of the things that also is playing and coming into practice for me is humility, and I know that's not on this specifically, but part of my reflection and working with the teams is trying to remember to be humble, and when I'm learning and when I'm observing, so that I can really fully take in what the teams are doing, what their understanding is, and it's been helping me just get another perspective in how I can assist them and support them. But I love everything that you've reminded me of tonight. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Kimberly. My personal takeaway is reflection, the reflect imperative. I think I've been lacking on. I tend to move really quick, or I just stop, but I don't really go at a pace where I can reflect much. And I try to improve. I do the processes, I do improvements, I do retrospectives. But yeah, it's kind of slowing down to really reflect is something that I think I'm not doing as well as I could be on my teams. So that's what I'm going to try to focus on.
And because you said reflect, right? Like this, when I was talking about what I have going on, right? The teams reflect on every 10 days, which is their retrospective, and every quarter on their assessment on how they did on the improvements they wanted to make. Because I've been doing this for now a year with this practice, and so I have trends for a whole year on how each team did. So that's how we reflect every 10 days and also every quarter on how we are doing, and it helps us to carve out our next improvement plan in a better way. So yes, I totally get it. It could be very hard. I even have a blog on my LinkedIn which says we have a bigger fish to fry, where I because after doing so many retrospectives, some teams actually ask me, so what did we really improve, Piyush? And that what made me think, like, yeah, you improved, but they're like, they are so teeny tiny improvements. We are not satisfied. Maybe we should need a bigger roadmap or something for improvements. And that's where it all came about.
Thanks, Piyush. I also failed to mention, although some of you probably saw it, at the top of the doc is a link to a job board. So if you are looking for a job or you have opportunities at your organization, click on that, which will take you to a Google Sheet. and you can add an entry there. Everyone else can access that, and that also is accessible by people in the larger community, the Agile Denver community, which is a collection of meetups. So please take advantage of that.
And I just want to take, since you just mentioned the Agile Denver group, just wanted to mention that the recording of this session will be posted to the Agile Denver YouTube channel at the end of the month. So if you know anyone else who might be interested in this topic, please point them that direction. Or if you just want to go back and listen to it again because you enjoyed it so much, feel free to do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Trent. That would be funny, Trent. I just imagine your wife walking in on you watching a video of yourself talking. So
she wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it'll be in line. You should just roll her eyes and keep walking. The YouTube channel link is also at the top of the document under the announcements section. And also you could just go to YouTube and search Agile Denver. Not all, but most of the Agile Denver meetups are recorded and posted to that YouTube channel monthly.
I also left you a little cartoon at the bottom of the document, so
I saw that. I used to hang that on my office when I served as Scrum Master. Yeah, check out the Denver comic at the bottom, or not Denver, what's that guy's name?
Dilbert.
Dilbert.
Dilbert. Yeah.
Dilbert at the bottom of the doc. Okay, any closing thoughts before in the last couple minutes here?
Thank you for hosting this, number one. I joined this because I am in a process of hiring. Currently, my company is expanding. And that's why this title caught my attention because of the meetup. I'm like, you know what, that actually makes sense. If I put the posting out saying Scrum Master, I'm only going to get Scrum bags, though I actually want something bigger than that, right? So thank you. You actually, if you're looking for someone's thought process to change, actually you have made a change. I am not going to post a Scrum Master opening. I'm going to do something else. I've not figured out what, but I will definitely put a thought. So thank you.
Let me know what you decide on. I'm curious.
Actually, I'm going more towards the coaching analogy. The team coach title sounds more aligned to me. So I'm thinking the title team coach, and then the promotion will be like the product line coach, and the promotion will be the enterprise agile coach. So this is how, then I'm not getting, because I can get, when I put the title coach, there'll be so many experienced people who'll try to apply because the coach is a more senior position. And like, that's again a mindset that I'm trying to get into. So thank you. You did change my opinion about Scrum Master to that other title that I'm thinking about now only because of this session.
You could do multiple position or multiple job recs for the same position like David talked about, and then get the metrics on that and then tell us about it. I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, sure. Only if my recruiting team wanted, because we have to hire 100 more people and they won't let me play with the game.
Right. And along those lines, Piyush, actually at the bottom, I put a link into an article I wrote about hiring Agile coaches. So there might be some overlap there with what you're trying to do. We struggled a lot in the title. We ended up going with Agile coaches as well. But there's some points there about the title and the career tracks and questions and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll definitely check it out.
Hey, and Trent, I may check with our people experience team or talent experience team and see if they have any numbers on how many people have applied through our Scrum Master versus our ATF roles. So I may check with that, and if I can get some numbers on that, I'll get that over to you.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see a few different metrics on that, slicing and dicing that, to see like who applied, what was their background, who you actually hired, that sort of thing.
All right, yeah, I'll look into that.
Having great discussion, but we are at the end of the time, and so we'll respect the time box, and we'll stop the recording here. Thank you guys so much for joining. You have access to that presentation and that doc indefinitely. So let us know if you lose the link. But thank you guys so much for joining and having a lively conversation.
Thank you,
Have a
Alex.
good night.
Thanks, David.